Flurry is, wow, she does so much, and she's really going to help you elevate your business. I don't know if you've been to an Ivy event before, but our goal is to really help you in every way we can. Not only are we a community and business management tool, but we also provide enriching education, whether it's a webinar, we do those weekly on Wednesdays, or Ivy Academy, which we did in person yesterday in Orange County, which was amazing. We really are so happy to be here today at the San Francisco Design Center, and thank you, Rhonda, for having us. We are so happy to be here, and thank you to our sponsors, Curry & Company, for the books that we will be giving you for our book signing over at Kravitz. So after this amazing presentation, please be sure to pop down that alley and we'll help guide you to Kravitz showroom so that you can get your book. All right, so before we get started with Amy's presentation, I do want to tell you a little bit about Ivy and our software and how it can really help your business. How many of you guys are currently using Ivy? Yay, a good handful of designers, awesome. So a couple of things, and I used to help manage a design firm, and I struggled a lot with the admin piece of the business. What Ivy will do is help streamline all of the not so nice stuff that takes you away from design by tracking your time. How many of you hate tracking time? I think everybody, oh, only a couple of you, okay, so you like it. And we know there's a lot of different ways to track your time, but with Ivy, we just launched our app, very exciting, which has limited features right now. Soon we'll be doing a full release, and you can easily track your time and create a time billing invoice, and you can take that invoice and you can send it to your client and you can ask for online payment. Now, not only can you get online payment by bank transfer or credit card, but the money goes into your bank account in 2 to 3 business days, which is very nice, sometimes even faster. And it just makes you look overall really professional. As you can see from this invoice, you have your logo, your branding, and you can add any attachments. It just makes you look really professional to your client, which we want to help all of the headaches that you probably get from all of the different things. There's so many moving parts. We really want to help centralize your overall workflow. Now, one of my favorite features about Ivy is the product clipper. So if you're on your vendor's website over here, you have this little Ivy leaf in the top right corner, and you can easily clip your items from your vendor's website. Very, very easy to do, as we're showing you right now. It takes 2 seconds, and you don't have to have all of the screenshots all over your desktop. You can select a vendor, add your description, and of course, what you want your client to see, they will see, and all of the other proprietary information only your vendor will see when you're sending the PO to your vendor. So you can save the product, you can build out a beautiful product library so you don't have to be sifting all throughout your email, because who has time for that, right? We really want to help make time for design, and everything's organized on the project level. You can build out your proposal, add your items onto the proposal, and then turn that into an invoice and turn that into a purchase order. So again, just helping you look very professional and creating less back and forth between you and your client. As you can see here, this is my product library, and I can easily grab all of these items onto my proposal. Now, once you send the purchase order to your vendor, you can also build out a project tracker, and that is something that a lot of you designers are typically doing on Excel. No more time for Excel. It's just so manual. Other things you can do is upload your vendors, upload your clients, and again, if you already have your vendor list, you can just upload it right into your Ivy account. Other benefits of Ivy, and there's a lot, I don't want to take up too much of your time, are that you can use our Discover network to help build out, people to help you do AutoCAD drawings. So there's a lot of things that we're here to help. And again, we have built this amazing community through our Facebook group. So I know those of you who are in the Facebook group every day message me and say, I can't believe that so-and-so is sharing their contract with me. We, again, really believe in a sense of community over competition, and we want to help propel your business forward. So definitely look for me or Gilly or Lee, Allison, any of us afterwards. If you want to get more information, we can help schedule you a one-on-one session so that we can really learn how you manage your business And without further ado, I'm really excited to introduce Amy Flurry. Before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about Amy. How many of you in the audience have read Amy's book before or know who Amy is? Okay, not enough. So, how many of you have been landed in a magazine before, or even if it's an online publication? Okay, and is that your goal, to take your business to the next level, to get landed in an online publication, to really grow your business? Well, I hope it's your goal because you're here today, right? So, Amy Flurry has 2 decades of editorial experience as a contributor to some of the biggest magazines on the newsstand and in print. Inspired by her career in publishing, Amy authored Recipe for Press, Pitch Your Story, and Create a Buzz in 2011, and then took to the road sharing her editorial insights with creative entrepreneurs. Recipes for Press Designer Edition 2018, which you are all going to get a signed copy of today, is her newest book with the tools interior designers, architects, landscape planners, and product designers need to take advantage of the new media opportunities available to creative professionals. Beyond publishing, Amy works with trade-only brands in marketing direction, brand development, and in building their relationships with interior designers. Amy is visiting all the way from Athens, Georgia, which I'm so excited that she's able to come to the West Coast. She has also co-founded Paper Cut Project, a company that conceives highly crafted installations in paper for fashion houses, including Kate Spade, Valentino, Christie's, and the Victoria and Albert Museum. So here we go, and please welcome me with Amy with a warm applause, and thank you so much, Amy, for being here today.
That was a very generous introduction. As I was waiting to come out here, I texted my mom and dad and said what I was about to do. And my mom took a look at the stage. I said, what a beautiful place this is to share and to speak. And her comment back to me was, I hope you're wearing a slip. I was like, oh God. So I hope we're good there. Thanks, Mom. It is really, really nice to be here, and especially to share with people who want to learn what I have to share and what I feel so impassioned about. Clearly, because I'm now 2 books into the same subject that only seems to pick up traction in terms of interest, in terms of the mystery, in terms of the interest in somebody demystifying how to get press and how to get your projects and your product and your story in front of and in the hands of influencers and editors and everybody we know that is now today's press. Book 1 was really kind of aimed at this general audience. I had been on the other side of the table as an editor. I told stories like yours and yours. That was my job, was to find your story, to tease out the essence of stories. And because I was a freelancer, I might put, your story in about 5 different places before I then moved on over here and, became interested in your story. And what I saw in doing that was that felt really good when I come to you and I'm interested in your story, and I find about 5 different ways to tell it, because as a freelancer, that was a smart idea, to place and to look for different angles and look for different ideas. But when I left here and moved on, what do you guess happened? Or what's your idea of what I heard over and over? Anybody's guess? I'll tell you, because it happened so much that I wrote a book about it. How do I make that happen again? Because that felt good. You came to me, this was great for business. People found me that wanted to collaborate. Other editors saw my stories, and now I'm getting more press. But I don't know how to find another Amy, and I don't feel comfortable approaching an editor, but I like what happened there, and my business needs it. And so what I observed in going around the country and speaking on this subject was that the largest audience were interior designers. And my business started becoming more and more focused on the interior design trade and in the world of interior design. And I can see just how much opportunity there is for you to get published. And how many of you feel that way? Or do you not feel that way? I'm here to tell you there's a lot of opportunity, but do you see it? Do you see your peers getting published on blogs, on podcasts, collaborating with manufacturers? That's what I could see coming. And what I also saw was a very, very big interest from everyone from design centers to manufacturers to project management tools in your business. And I want you to really internalize that, because you are a very coveted audience. And so you have to make decisions wisely and take care of your time. And even when it comes to communications, everything you need to know really on this subject is in the book that you're going to get courtesy of Curry & Company, which I am really grateful has sponsored a book for each of you. They believe in me, and they believe in the book, they like what I'm doing, and I like what they do. But I think I just want you to not worry so much about taking notes, but just to hear what I have to say on the subject, because I think it's going to demystify the whole journey for you and help give you real focus into how to create this plan. So this is a page from book 1, and this is how editors think. So when I sit down and I want to hear you, well, let me take that back. When I sit down with you and I'm a writer, do I want to hear your whole story? No. No. This is how I am going to hear your whole story, but this is really critical to understand when you are courting writers and editors. They don't need to hear your whole story. They need to hear the part of your story that matters to the pages that they write. But it's important to understand, and my whole point of view in sharing this message is, do you want to see yourself in the pages of these magazines, on these blogs? Then think like an editor. And this is how an editor sees your story, not as one big story. They come at it from a million different ways, and they're looking to find the part of your story that matters to the pages they write. So, book 1, I made the big choice to print 10,000 of these books, which clearly I needed a mentor before doing that, but they did arrive on a semi, and instead of lighting a fire to them, which I kind of felt like doing, I just got out hustling and taking this book with me all over the country and listening to people, and in turn, they started sending me pictures like this. Like, I read it, I put the formula together, and I've got press. And this woman happens to live in the Hamptons. She does illustrations by hand for invitations, custom illustrations. Probably one of the most difficult things to get pressed. But what she was saying to me was, I landed it, and the next thing I know, and I landed it on my own, using the formula, and the next thing I know, somebody happened to be reading the magazine. That reader was one of the producers of the Good Morning America. They called her. They thought it'd be a great idea for their under $50 holiday segment. And she went on to get press piece after press piece after press piece, because that's what happens with press. And I know that because I also have to implement what I speak on. This is my art project. It kind of falls into the realm of design, and they're paper wigs, handcrafted one piece at a time. And my audience is high-end fashion, luxury fashion houses. I'm in Athens, Georgia, not exactly the nexus of luxury fashion. So, in order to get these into the hands of the right people who can see us and see, is there something there? Is there a collaboration there? We have to get press, and we have not invested one dime into advertising. We pitch our pictures. We think to ourselves beforehand, after we complete a project, what are my potential customers reading? And even beyond that, what are their assistants reading? What blogs are their assistants reading? And inevitably, the creative director, when I asked the creative director of Hermes or Christie's or Valentino, how'd you find us? I hear back, oh, my assistant found you on some blog somewhere. This is a really key thing to understand, because no editor-in-chief is going to find you. Who's going to find you? Who are you going to pitch? Not somebody up high on the masthead. Keep going down. You break into these places by pitching editorial assistants, assistant editors. Half the times they're writing a third of the magazine anyway. And in about 2 years, that person's going to be a senior editor. And they're going to move magazines. And you want to seed relationships, and they will take you with them, and they'll retell your story. And that's what I find over and over again with my own book promotion, with my own press, and with the people that I work with. So, taking a moment to share what I'm also observing that I think is very exciting. And that is that these three things are very much tied together in business now. It used to be kind of your communications department's way over here, and the creative art department's over here, and business is way back here, and y'all do your crafty things, and we'll call you when we need you. Today, creativity and commerce and communication are in the same boardroom, and they're equal one to the next. And that's important for you to understand, because communications doesn't look the same way it used to also. It's not just about getting your project in the pages of print magazine. There are so many opportunities, and you see these relationships, and you go from one educational seminar to the next design center to there's just so much opportunity in this realm to create and support and share your story. So that's a very exciting thing. But here's the spoiler alert. It's whether you like it or not, whether you can afford a publicist or not, you're the new publicist for your brand, for your firm. Any PR firm would tell you, and I start my book by sharing chapter 1 with a good publicist in this industry. And any publicist will tell you, you don't get to stand on the podium before running the race. You want to understand what a publicist can do for you to get to that point where you could have a publicist. But until that point, there is so much you can do on your own in a very strategic manner to promote your business and to position your business how you would like to on these pages and in print and online. But this is how it feels sometimes, does it not? And like, well, how exactly do I go about doing that, Amy? This all sounds awesome, but I also have to build clients, and I don't even know when I'm going to do this or have time for it. But what I would suggest is just to take the fear part out of it, just to say, if I spend 1 hour a week on this for a whole year, it's going to be 50 some odd hours that I didn't put towards it last year. Something will happen, because energy creates energy and momentum, and something will happen. So don't think you have to, break wide and dive in here without a plan and with too much time, because what will happen is you'll fizzle out. It will become uninteresting. You need to take the long game approach, and you need to kind of prepare yourself for a steady effort towards communications, and it will work. There's too much opportunity out there for it not to. Not everybody's going to land in Architectural Digest, but why would you want to anyway if the whole goal is to get clients in your own neighborhood, or more clients in your neighborhood, or more in your own region? That doesn't even make sense. So we're going to try to make sense out of what would a plan look like that makes sense to our business. Because what I would also like to share and get out of the way is that Press should not be about ego. It's about business. That's the way I see it. And once you kind of let it sit there, it's easier to then share what you're doing with others and not think like, what if they say no? Oh, why, I don't know if mine's as good as the next. Sometimes it doesn't matter. On deadline, just give me the picture because I need it before 5, That's the reality. Okay, so we want to understand the purpose before we take one foot in this direction. And why is that? Because it gives us direction. I can't tell you where to even begin with a press plan if you can't tell me what you want from it. Does that make sense? So it's not just, because I talked about this for a long time before it dawned on me, like, wait a minute, someone came here, paid good money to hear me speak, did a little small breakout session after, and when I asked her why she wanted press, she was like, I don't know. Like, everybody else is getting it, and it's a popular subject, and I feel like I should be doing this, but I really haven't thought about exactly why. So that's when it hit me, like, this is a good time to talk about this. Because we need to ask ourselves, why do we want press? What do we want it to do? Because the minute you could tell an expert like me what you want it to do, then I can start creating your plan. I can give you direction. And what I mean by that, let's see, is if your goal is I want press because I need more clients in a neighboring city, and that in fact was that's where she was coming from. She actually said, she did know what she wanted. She said, actually I'm maxed out in my town. I would like more clients in Atlanta. So what that tells me is like, all right, we don't need to be pitching House Beautiful, we need to be pitching Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles. And not even further, what neighborhood would you like to see more clients come from? Because let's look at the publications that come out in that neighborhood, like Buckhead Life. Let's look at even maybe something like a Junior Service League newsletter, a garden club. There are just so many forms of press, and sometimes we get hung up on the big names, and when in fact the drivers of business are going to be something like a newsletter or a collaboration with a retail shop in that neighborhood where you want more clients. All of these things are press. If you wanted to be an expert in a particular field, say you're good at color therapy, you have a thing with small spaces you do really well, any other experts here or designers that might like to position themselves as an expert or kind of a specialist? You could just raise your hand to give me some feedback. Okay, what might that be? What kind of specialization? Excuse me? Textiles, perfect. Then we're going to want to speak of ourselves as that expert. We're going to want to angle social media towards that. We want to express that wildly on social media. We might want to be on a podcast, pitch a podcast where you can talk for an hour on what that means. So that you might want to pitch a design center to be on a panel as a textile expert, because they're all looking for each market. All of these educational opportunities need people in those chairs to fill them. So that's what I mean by that would give me some idea of how to then create a strategy to position you. And then if we're talking products, then we're looking more at the front of the magazine, product-driven pages. We're looking at gift guides and things like that. So that's what I mean, just by kind of knowing what you want to happen. It's intention. So at that point, that's when we can target with a very clear point of view. I like to talk about point of view, and speaking of textiles, this is a design from Cloth and Kind. The girl on the left lives in Athens, Georgia, where I live, and her partner's in Ann Arbor. But their point of view is written all over them, from their textile, their love affair with textiles, and with surface design. It's in their images, it's in what they wear, it's on their website. You get that. So that talking about point of view, that is what editors are looking for to express, to tease out. When I hear someone's story, and I'm also looking for like how it makes sense to the pages I'm writing, I'm also listening for essence, a point of view. And I think that's a good exercise for yourself to ask, do I have one? Can I express that? How can I give these words to somebody else so they can share it easily? What are people going to remember me for when they see it visually, when they see my card, when they see how I show up at events? What is it that makes me me? Because that's what we're looking for. Anybody who's ever heard me talk, I'm so glad that not many of you have, because I'm always trying to change up my own talk to keep it interesting for me and to remember to share the things I forgot at the last and things like that. But I will always say this. If I could walk in and I only got to say one word, and then I had to walk off the stage, I'd say photography. And I'd just ask for my check. And I'd feel like I had helped you out in the best way I could possibly know to do. And I am sincere. And I'm a writer, and that doesn't feel really hot stuff to say, but that is the truth. We are in a very, very, very much an image-driven moment. But even when I was working for editorial some 10, 15 years back, it's about the image. When I see a pitch come through my email, I'm going to look at the image first and then read it. And I'm going to know in 3 seconds if you're going to if you have potential to land on the pages. Now that might be a little bit disheartening, but it also could be very helpful because now you know where to direct some of your funds if you are looking at like what I need to do to get ready. Images will support everything that you need to do to express your brand, from websites, these images that you put money towards for good photography, can support your website, they can support the outtakes, can support your social media, they can be parts of newsletters. So I never do a photo shoot without wringing that shoot dry of every picture that I took, because it's an expense that I make certain to photograph everything, and I think I'm doing so strategically. But I need to take this as a little bit of a step further, because so many people, after giving talks, I noticed they're like, I hired my photographer, and they'd come back and share with me their pictures. And I'd see like, wow, I didn't express that I needed to say, these images need to look like they already belong on the pages of the magazines that you want to be a part of, or the blog you want to be a part of. There are many reasons for this. Anyone's guess as to one of them? What's that? Publications want to take the images and use them. Correct. And from where I was on the other side, and from a freelancer point of view, I could see that, we used to have budgets to send a pair of Spanx 2 blocks, I mean, it was just nothing to, blow through money on stuff. And then the recession happened, and then editorial teams got smaller and smaller and smaller. Photography teams got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then what happened was we introduced the online pages. So now with every publication, they have an online component. 2 different sets of editorial teams. They all need photography. But they do not have the team to send photographers like they used to. That's not to say that all of them don't, but by and large, those budgets were cut. So if I am an editor and I'm pitched and I'm looking at 2 possibilities, 2 very good stories that should be in the pages, and one of them comes to me with images that are press ready, which one am I going to use? The one that has images. How many of you have a really good editorial style picture of yourself or portrait? Okay, that's 3. It's important to know, and that's good that you do. It's important to note that that also has its own tone. This is aspirational. We're in the publications, they all run on new, and they are all aspirational. So I know you don't wake up and go to an install looking like this designer on the right. But that's what you need to look like on your website if your goal is to get press. You need to have an image, a portrait that looks like it belongs in those pages. Now, this designer's given me permission to share this, but that's the picture that she came to after I told her to get a good picture of herself by a professional photographer on the left. She's a good-looking woman. It's not a bad picture, but it's not editorial. I can't use it. And anyway, I said, I bet that's your front door because I see the hinge and, you know. And she's like, okay, it is. And it's probably your friend, the photographer. Okay, so then that brings the question, well, what's the difference between an editorial? You can see the difference, but how do I know how to find that person? And to that question, I would say, open the magazines that you want to be a part of. Look at the bylines of the photographers that are taking those pictures. They're your photographers. They are all, generally they're freelancers as well. And guess what? They have the ear to those editors. Those editors are asking those photographers, who are you seeing? Who are you taking pictures of? They look to their Instagram stories to see where they're shooting because they're always in the market for new material. So that's one way to find, you know, a photographer who's going to bring the lighting, who has the eye to shoot in a way that will get you closer and more quickly into the pages that you want to be a part of. This is an Ivy user. This is Laura Thurman on the left with a picture, not a bad picture, but a little fuzzy, not quite high resolution enough. And editing, you know, we can see that with our eye. But when she got this message, and I think after you read the book, I hear people say, I got it. And I actually wanted to name the book, Get It, because people who want, but my husband said that would be kind of mean, but people, editors, any professionals, you know this, you want to work with people who get it. You want clients who get you. So in the same way, editors are looking for designers to run stories on who kind of get it. You don't have to be an editor yourself. You don't have to know everything, but you understand the relationship. And that's what my book is about. I'm just telling you on behalf of all editors everywhere, here's what you need, and here's what you don't need to spend money on. Because the truth is, or the fact is that I saw so many people spending so much effort to get my attention when I was an editor. And I had a very interesting vantage because I wasn't in the cubicles in New York. I was out, I was in boutiques, I was in studios, I was in spaces. And that's why it felt good, because I was coming, you know, I was coming to you. But I could see that there was still some mystery, and I could see so many people trying so hard, spending a lot of money and sending all the wrong signals. And when you send the wrong signals, it just signals to me you're not quite ready for me to share with thousands and thousands of people. That's what I mean by get it, and that's what this book is about. It's just information that is helpful. So once Laura got it, she was like, I don't have to have a publicist to get to you. I don't have to, you know, have a folder to put in front of you. And, you know, one by one it started clicking for her. But she took the photography thing to a very extreme strategically. She said, what I want is to be more of a personality and hopefully one day have something on HGTV. So that's telling me more personality driven. It's about her and her kind of global style. LA moves to Nashville. Okay, so I got that. Now I get Laura. So I said, you need more pictures of yourself. You need pictures of your space that reflect your personality. So she invited me to come and do a small group talk in her home in Nashville. She photographed the whole thing. She got pictures beforehand, since her home was already ready and cleaned up. She got pictures of herself, many different kinds of portraits, so she checked that box. She got, before everybody came, the photographer, she had a photo session of her house, so she had pictures with her house. She got pictures of the gathering, and she placed that story in Ivy magazine. Did y'all know that Ivy has her own magazine and look for stories? They do. And interestingly, she said to me, when I suggested she start there, because she really would like to start at House Beautiful, or, Elle Decor. But you don't get to jump into the pages of Elle Decor if you haven't gotten some regional press. You need to know what it feels like, or some online press. You need to get into the hang of working with these editors, and they want to see that you've made that effort. They want to see that another editor in your neck of the woods has kind of vetted you and given you a thumbs up. So once she got that down, she placed it there. Let's see if I'm going to go back and stay with Laura for a minute. She realized in the pictures that she took of her house, she's like, I use a lot of Universal furniture. Maybe they would be interested in me doing a blog post or something, since I have these beautiful pictures of their product in my house. Were they interested? Yes. You want to know why? Because they're overwhelmed with this thing too. They have to do newsletters, they have to do blog posts, they have to do social media now. Manufacturers have to do all these things that we're all supposed to be doing, and they're not quite all equipped yet either, because it's a lot. So there's opportunity, and that made sense to her rooms. Then what did Universal do? They pitched her, they sent a crew to her house to take even more pictures and pitched that to Business of Home. So then she had a 4-page business spread in Business of Home. And then she pitched her story to HGTV magazine, whose magazine she will be in November. From this one photo shoot, she landed so many things. And when people started seeing that happen, then guess what? High Point Market, you're a style spotter. High Point Market, why don't you be on our panel? There is so much opportunity once you get this thing going. But, now, 8 months in, she has to think about it again. Okay, did that, maximize that one photo shoot, now what? Now I need to create a second strategy. So you're always going to be revisiting these things, but I'm just telling you that can happen, and it takes effort, and it takes reciprocity to people who help you out or facilitate an introduction, and it takes showing up, and that's what this person does. When I give a talk, if she's in the vicinity, she's front row. She's supporting somebody who supported her by just nudging her along. So that's maybe off topic, but it's really important because editors are having to, editors would prefer to stay behind the scenes, but these days they have to be on panels. If you'll notice at your design centers, the design centers have so much educational, so they're a little more front and center. And that is a time not to pitch editors, but to show up and introduce yourself. And that's the first blush. And then pitch. They appreciate that, and they're looking for designers. So these are all more examples of what a good portrait of a designer would look like, very well lit. And this is a page from my book on your home and how you might want to think about when you are photographing your own home. Because again, back to this point, I'm going to keep looking at you for this because it's kind of where we started. But in the same sense that you've got this whole story, but as a writer, I'm going to hear different aspects of your story. Any one home is not going to be one entire feature in any magazine. Very few, there are a few that would run every picture that you gave them, but they may not be the magazines you want to be a part of. A good design magazine is looking for their story. So in that way, when you have a project, think about your project in stories. Do you have a color story in there? Do you have the ever-popular kitchen and bath story there? Do you have a small space story? Do you have a kids' room story? Do you have the indoor-outdoor story? Are you an elementary school teacher, or did you have a past life as an elementary school teacher and you really are into organization and you've organized something very beautifully, or that's a focus? That's a story. That's what I mean about just thinking about that before, and strategically before you have something photographed, so you can tell these stories or pitch these stories to various editors. So by the time we get to the pitch, and there is an example of a pitch in my book, there's an example of a follow-up, there's a real handrail for what they should look like. But by the time you get to pitching, the pitch is very simple. The work is in the homework. Does anybody have any idea of what the number one complaint of editors everywhere is about the pitch? Come on. Too wordy, that's number 2. Yes? There's no story. Good. Right there with him. Excuse me? What the company stands for. That's okay. That's in the right direction. You didn't read the magazine before you pitched. And I know it, like in one sentence. and any podcaster knows it. You didn't listen to the podcast before you pitched. We don't even run this kind of story, and that's the kind of story you pitched because you thought it was a good story. This is an exchange. Press is free, should be free. That's how it works. But these writers and editors are the biggest ambassadors of what you do, but you also need to understand what they do and appreciate and read what they do. So when you are understanding that magazines and blogs, they all have formulas. Every month they're put together in the same way, in sections that look the same every month. Then you begin to understanding how these things are put together, and that different editors put together different sections of a magazine, and that their names are on those sections. You're getting closer, so that you get to the place where you're pretty confident by the time you pitch that you have done the homework to know that your story has a good chance of belonging. Why do you know that? Because you're seeing other stories like yours in there. A good indicator of do I fit is when you see a true competitor in there, and instead of having that feeling like, God, they get all the press, instead, look at their press page. I'm big on strategy, so here's one tip. Look at their press page and everybody that's ever written about that competitor, if they are truly your competitor. Everyone who's the next designer to write about them. And instead of feeling like, no, they get all the press, think, there's my roadmap. This is the homework I'm going to do to see what writers, what editors are looking for the next designer. Okay, what do we notice about this pitch diagram? First thing. Short and pictures. Because that's how much space those pictures. We're not going to share every image you have on the idea that you're pitching or the project that you're pitching. We're going to give a few teasers, but they are going to be in the body of the pitch. And editors want to be pitched by email. Don't go pitching them when you meet them at a design center. Don't pitch them on social media. But understand when you create this relationship, they may over time come to you in social media and say, hey, quickly, what are you working on? When you have that relationship. But the right way to pitch any editor is to pitch them by email. That's how they want to be pitched. And even if you tried another way, they're going to have to say, send me an email. And they want it to look like this. When you're pitching projects, one of the best things you can do for an editor, and you'll see this in the example in the book, is to bullet point special things about that project. That way, they can start to see what it's about, and they might find their angle in your bullet points. And they're a quick and easy thing to read. And the first 3 sentences should just be connecting the dots, that you know, that I know, that you know, that this has potential in this section of the story, that I've read the magazine, that I like what you do, and I have something to share. And that I haven't shared it, with every other editor at the same time, that I'm coming to you first. That's a really key point when we're talking pitching projects. These 2 slides are probably the most important slides, and I feel like can give you, on the whole, the right attitude and the things that you really don't want to do, and the things that editors love in terms of just relationship. First one, familiarity with publications. Amazing pictures, and you will want to make sure you have editorial rights to your pictures. They'll want to know that so that they can use them and not have to buy them. And so you might have to pay a little more for your picture photography when you're taking pictures of the house, but that is a conversation you're going to have with your photographer. Timely angles, new collections or launches, tying old stuff. You've probably got so much good press-worthy material that you think is too old. I wouldn't think it's too old, because I might, as an editor, tie it into a new theme. I might tie it into color of the year. So don't think you are, just because it was shot last year, 2 years ago, that it cannot find place in current magazines. You just have to find angles that make sense. Sometimes new collections, for example, companies will roll out new collections one piece at a time, but they may just roll out one new color of something rather than an entire collection, because they're just being strategic about how many ways, how many times they can place this thing. Quick responders. When I am on a team, or let's just imagine a scenario where you're the editor and you've got a page that's mostly filled out, but you've got one spot left, and you've got to fill that spot before 5 o'clock, and this happens all the time. Who am I going to call?
The person who gave you the photo by 5 o'clock.
Yes, the person who has the photo to give me by 5 o'clock, and who I know is going to respond to me quickly. And they're not going to be upset if I don't use it, because they get it. You know, they're like, if you don't use it this time, they're probably going to come back next time when that same pinch. But they're your go-tos. You want to become that person. You want to be easy to work with, have things ready, call back quickly. When you wonder why the same people get a lot of the press, it's because they're easy to work with like this. They're ready. If you cannot get back to that editor within a few hours of when they have emailed you, you might just want to send a little note that says, I hear you, I got it, I'm going to respond to you, by end of day. That's the kind of, that's a good publicist. They don't let things sit. Complete information and complete projects. I know sometimes it's exciting when you have a project and you know it's so good and you just really want to send a teaser, but it's not finished. It needs to be finished. They're going to have to tell you, come back when it's finished. And they want you to kind of be able to share in a few words the story behind things, and that should also be reflected on your website concisely. Kindness and reciprocity and support. Those things go so far. Relationships are everything in this business, and I think we all know it, but it's so true for editorial too. And sometimes the best thing you can do is share somebody else's work when you know yourself it's not a good fit. That's another sign of a good publicist, once you've created these relationships with editors. Okay, here's what they loathe. And I know you would never do it. I know you would never misspell an editor's name when you're pitching them, but it happens all the time. And it's another of those indicators, like my editor on my book, Marjorie Gage. She's a freelance writer and editor. She's like, oh, the number of times I get Dear Gage, and it's Marjorie, and so she's just not going to go any further. And they're just looking for a reason to delete, so don't give them reasons to delete. Spell the name correctly. Good morning, Marjorie, instead of maybe the, to whom it may concern. Never pitch with a phone call or really by social. Pitching multiple editors the same idea at the same time. What happens if two of them come back and they say they want that idea, they want that story? You're going to have to tell one of them that they can't have it even though you pitched them, because their competitor is running it. And that is the impression that you will that will be the impression that will last. So you want to, when you're pitching projects specifically, you want to give editors the first right of refusal. And just understand that when we're talking about pitching projects, this is a long game. Some magazines will make you wait for a year, big ones. They'll say they want it, and you'll still be sitting there waiting, wondering like, you said you wanted it, but I don't see it in the pages. A year or more. I see it all the time. Think about your regional publications. They're quicker to respond. They're beautiful. They are so grateful for the content, and you'll get faster leads there, and that doesn't mean that they can't then go on to be in another magazine somewhere else. But you just don't want to kind of scattershot approach and see what sticks. That's never a good idea. Not with a specific story, and definitely not with projects. We talked about pitching unfinished projects. Too many images in a pitch. You don't want to go and meet an editor at an event and she says, yes, please send me some images, and then you send her like 12 or 20 high-res images that fill her inbox and kind of clog things up. You just want to send a taste and a link to images behind that. But you don't want to send you're not asking them to edit down your images. You want to edit images beforehand. Blasting unpublished pictures all over social media. If you want a project published, if that's the goal, then don't share the main houses that even though you know you've got this beautiful house and you've had it, well photographed, you share a vignette of that. Share a small little corner, but don't share the main room because they consider that already published. That's when you have to decide, do I want to hold out for the big story, or is social really important to my clients and I want to consider my social my own kind of magazine and press? You get to decide that. But I'm just telling you, if you want it in print, they don't want to see it all over your social media. And then excessive follow-ups and overzealous contact. Someone asked me to include that one. And you do want to follow up once on a pitch. And when it comes to projects, because sometimes these editors can sit on it for so long, beyond that, you want to check in the time frame. I'd say check in like 3 weeks after you pitch a project. Are you interested? And sometimes they'll even make you wait a little longer. But when it gets to the point where you're ready to share with another editor because you haven't had any kind of signals that say they're interested, let them know you're going to take it somewhere else. You wanted to give them that opportunity. Because sometimes that is what gets them to move. And then, of course, I don't even have to talk about attitude, but I know that wouldn't be from you all. But it's always a strange thing when somebody, this exchange is it's not advertising. So it's always this funny thing when you get attitude on the other end from something that is our job to do as an editor. And editors will be the first to share good people, creative, amazing work. We get so excited about that, and we share that even with our competitors when it's not something that we can use. But we are quicker to share when somebody, has bad form. So just, don't be that person. And we're kind of nearing the end of this talk, but go where the editors go. Again, you've got to get yourself out there to meet people anyway, but these editors are now having to get out there, and they're looking for designers to meet. This is my book launch, something as small as a personal book launch. I invite editors as often as I can to join me after, this is Jane Dagny, Editor-in-Chief of Designers Today, and I said, it'd be great if you could join after my talk and just share what you're looking for, just like shore up my talk. Every editor, 100% of what I say does not apply to 100% of editors, but mostly, on the whole, it does. But then everyone has, well, I don't mind if you do this, but you need to hear that from them. So at my book launch, she shared exactly what she was looking for. And why is that? Because she's got to fill the pages of these magazines, and she's got the online magazine behind that to fill. And she's got a blog for Designers Today that she's got to fill that too. So she is looking for content just like all of these editors are. There is enough. If you want to get your story placed, you will get your story placed somewhere. I think in the first issue that came out after that book launch, No short of 5 stories came from that talk. They heard what I said, they heard what she was looking for, and they pitched, and they landed a lot of press. This was the Design Bloggers Conference in LA this past year. Relationships were so strong at this because editorial teams and this editorial community is so small. But on my left is my editor on the book. She's also an editor with many magazines. On my right was a former intern of mine, assistant editor of Atlanta Homes and Lifestyles, who put this thing on. Clint Smith, former editor-in-chief of Veranda, was there for 3 days. Nick May from the Shays Lounge podcast was there for all this time, all looking for new people to write it on. So just understand that that's what they're doing. They have to be there sometimes, but they're also looking to meet new designers, taking those cards, going back and looking at your website. And that's why positive relationships are so key. And I can't speak to this enough, but this page is from the book, and it's on how to read a masthead. And does everybody know what a masthead is? It's in the front of magazines, or it's the key to who puts together these pages of magazines and blogs. And in my book, I'm telling you what all of these different kinds of editors mean, because they all do different things, and it's good to understand what each of them are. My point is, if you want to crack into a magazine, as I mentioned before, you don't go to the top. You crack in, you pitch the editorial assistants, who will then become, the home editor, who will then become the market editor. Similar to the trajectory of all of these interns that I've had that become editors, this being among the first. She's in the entire chapter in my book. And how quickly did the tables turn that I am pitching her stories now. So don't forget those young ones. Know they are very excited also to have you pitching them, and you might get a little more time, but also know that these assistant editors, these young people are going to carry your story for a long time. And then you will be sharing a designer who then pitches her, who then ends up at her house to feature her in HGTV magazine, which this was a picture that they just sent from their iPhone. So it is so intertwined, our relationships all. Press looks so different. You probably all here could find someone to collaborate today with, to work stories onto each other's blogs, to just begin that path. But just know how many opportunities exist out there for you, how having the fundamentals down will help place you in all of the ones you want to be a part of, and that relationships in this industry are so key to your success. As are relationships with companies like Curry, who's giving you all a book today, and they're going to be at Craven right afterwards. As are companies like Craven, who are providing a beautiful place to come. They want you to know about their goods. They want to do something to further your success. And I think that is where we will all, I think this is the kind of general nature of business today, particularly in this industry. You won't grow unless other people grow. Manufacturers are not going to grow without your support. So collaborating, commerce, finding ways to do that creatively is going to be your success, particularly when it comes to press. Final slide. Should you need more support in this effort, my team has created, just based on feedback we have gotten, when people take this on to do themselves, we hear a couple things all the time, so we tried to come up with things that would support that are very inexpensive. One is a media list that is relevant to you. We put together a media list. It's $75, not $2,075. And it's almost 1,000 national and regional editors that are relevant. They're the right people to pitch. And we double check that they're there by providing also a social media contact. So before you ever pitch an editor, follow them on social media. You will see that their most current information is in their bio, and that just saves a lot of time in finding the contact, their email address, and so on. And then the sweet pitch wheel, which is a physical, old-fashioned informational wheel that shares with you when to pitch, because national magazines are operating 5-6 months in advance, and regional magazines are putting their magazines together like 2 or 3 months in advance. And so this little wheel helps you, you know, if it's whatever month we're in, September now, you'll be able to see which issues they're working on, and you'll get into that mentality of being an editor, and you'll think, oh, they're working on the February issue. Oh, they're probably looking for red products, and they're probably looking for things that have chocolate. You know, they're ubiquitous, and then you start thinking, do I have anything that plays into any of these common themes that every magazine everywhere is going to be writing about? That's thinking like an editor and getting you closer to those pages. So that wraps up my talk on this subject, and clearly I have so much more to say because it's all in a book for you. Thank you, Ivy, for having me. Thank you, Samantha, for inviting me. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. So we are so happy that you're able to join us today. And we have about 5 minutes for a couple questions. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, great. You were the first.
Thank you. You said that it was a no-no to put images out on social media. Does that also go into play for websites?
Okay, so that's the big question. It is up to you. However, editors tell me, and because this is the question that everyone wants to know, editors, we understand that your clients need to see your most current work on the website. And when it's your best work, you definitely want it to be represented there. So if you need to put a project up there, you may just limit the number of pictures you put there. Because really, if I go and see every picture from that shoot on your website, I consider that published. But sharing a little bit is understandable if it's on your website. If it's on your social media, again, there are just so many ways that you can hint at the project that you're doing without sharing the entire pictures. So that's really a decision you have to make. Sometimes on stories, those things disappear after 24 hours, so, you know, it never happened. But when you're really serious about sharing with some big drivers, editors will, designers who are used to getting published will hang on to those before putting them, out there. Regional magazines, regional editors are a little more lenient about that, but they still don't want to see it blasted everywhere either. So it's really a decision that you as a designer have to make, or you as the, as a designer. But that's how they feel.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
Hi. How common is it for an editor to go back after they've committed? For instance, I had an editor come to me. We have something coming out. They haven't taken photos yet for May, and it's a big feature, the cover. But I then have not gone to anybody else for this really big, great project. And just wondering about trust. We have nothing signed. Just wondering about trust in there, and if it's safe to just go, okay, fine, I'm not going to pitch anyone else, and just do editors go back on their word often?
They do go back on their word. I have seen it. In that, and we're talking the ones who can do that without it ruining, I think what editors do on a very high level when it comes to projects, we just need to understand our long game in terms of placement. It takes so much longer. It is so unusual for stories or profiles or products for anybody to wait as long as they do on projects, but this is because they have fewer pages, fewer opportunities for projects. They have so much to choose from. When an editor is telling you that they're interested in this potential cover, that's pretty much a commitment. They're not going to give you a signed contract for that. But they cannot tell you at that time often what month it's going to go in, because those issues are then laid out and planned by a team, their team. And every one of those issues has a different theme, and you will find those themes in the advertising section. If you went on the advertising section of their website, you'd find their editorial calendar, and they're telling you May might be the food month, August might be the indoor-outdoor event month, or something like that. And they're going to try to plug those stories that they have committed to into the right issues where they belong with the theme. And that's why this process takes a lot longer, and that's why they can't quite commit. They have given you an exact date. Oh, I think just sit tight. I know it's, yeah. I mean, generally, no, that I have heard it does happen sometimes, but not as you've gotten that far along if they've given you an exact date. I will say, I know a few designers that were, what has happened that I have seen is editorial teams change over. And this editor offered you this and committed to that date, and then they move on, and then a whole other team comes in, and maybe they want to bring in their own, ideas and their own projects, and that's when I see people getting kind of caught in that no man's land. But just, I would say in this case, be patient, because it just takes that long. I kind of like to say, set it and forget it. If they're interested in it and something happened to it, somebody else is going to pick that up. But try to get it, if it's that good, try to get it to where you want it to belong, and just be patient. Was there any one more? Okay, one more.
Oh, I've heard that sometimes editors will look through House or something to go look for content. So what is your thinking on what images you put out on a certain project on House? Like, let's say, would you put out amateur photos on House and withhold your professional hero shot for the pitches, or like what's your thinking on that? Because they're looking at, I do have heard of editors looking for projects, but then at the same time, I'm also hearing you say that we should withhold our projects until we do the pitches.
That's really a personal decision for the designers who are participating in something like House. I think if they want that to attract clients and less editorial, then maybe they want to make that decision to put their best pictures on House. But I can't say that that's not how I would go about finding content necessarily. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I think that what I hear for designers is that that's a faster track to finding clients than editorial. Yeah, I'd still say they don't want to see things blasted everywhere. It's not your best hero shots. Again, it's really up to you to understand what is the purpose, what do you want this to do, and if you want it to, if you really are looking for these things to be published, then you don't want to spread it too thin across all of these channels.
Great. Okay, that's our last question. And before we give Amy a round of applause, I just want to tell you one more time, if you didn't put your business card in the bowl, Lee, our co-founder of Ivy, will be walking around. Definitely make sure. And the reason is you have a chance to win a 1-hour consult with Amy Flurry. So please join us over at Kravitz, where we will have lunch and we will have drinks and you'll be able to get your books. And we're very excited, and thank you so much, Amy.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Hope it helped.
Thank you.